I never thought betrayal could look so glamorous. One moment I was sipping champagne at my brother's wedding reception, smiling for the live stream. The next, a stranger's comment sliced through the air. "So the family trust is going to fund her new venture?" My stomach twisted. Ethan, my only brother, stood beside his stunning new wife, Sabrina, an influencer adored by millions, but her eyes caught mine with a flash of something colder than hate. I didn't know it yet, but by the end of that night, our $8 million family legacy would vanish, and the war for the truth would begin. The chandeliers dripped light like molten gold over the marble floors, each crystal catching the gleam of cameras positioned around the grand hall. Our family estate had never looked more like a palace, and yet I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking through a set, playing a role I hadn't auditioned for. I stood near the edge of the ballroom, my smile fixed, one hand wrapped tightly around the stem of my champagne flute, as though it were the only solid thing keeping me upright. The livestream crew moved through the guests, their lenses sweeping across trays of oysters, fountains of champagne, and tables set with white roses in crystal vases. Somewhere in the background, I caught the familiar, reassuring voice of the estate's announcer, telling the virtual audience about the trust fund legacy that had protected our family wealth for generations. $8 million meant to safeguard the future of our children. My chest tightened. That trust fund was more than numbers to me. That trust, it was my father's last act of love, the last thing he put in place before his heart finally failed. Then came the entrance that everyone had been waiting for. Ethan, my only brother, strode into the room with the confidence of a man who believed every light in the chandelier existed to shine for him. At his side, Sabrina, a vision in silver silk, her hair a cascade of perfect waves, her smile as wide as her audience of millions expected it to be. She waved to the cameras, blowing kisses to the live stream viewers. Every gesture rehearsed. The crowd murmured with admiration, the way people do when they're looking at a celebrity, not a human being. But my eyes caught hers. For just a fraction of a second, Sabrina's smile faltered. There, in that tiny sliver of time, I saw something colder than contempt, calculation. And then, as if she'd felt me reading her, the smile snapped back into place, brighter than ever. A waiter passed with a tray of champagne, and I caught the whisper of conversation between two guests behind me. "I heard the trust is going to fund her new venture," one said, voice low but not low enough. My fingers tightened around my glass, the bubbles inside suddenly seeming to mock me. Dinner was served under the glittering canopy of chandeliers, and conversation flowed in carefully curated waves. Halfway through the main course, Sabrina stood, the microphone in her hand, gleaming like a scepter. "I want to take a moment," she began, her voice warm and sweet, "to thank this family for welcoming me. I believe in innovation, in doing something bold with the blessings we've been given. That's why I'm so excited to share my vision for a charitable foundation that will help change lives." Polite applause followed, but I felt the heat rising in my chest. This wasn't just an announcement, it was a move, a public, very deliberate move. Ethan's voice cut through the clapping. "Of course, my sister Claire thinks charity is risky," he said, with a laugh that wasn't quite a joke. "She's always been the cautious one, afraid of change." The room chuckled, some awkwardly, some in genuine agreement. My mother, seated beside Ethan, nodded with a small, proud smile, as if this were a son speaking truth, not a man undermining his sister in front of the world. That same approving nod had followed Ethan all his life, from the day he was handed the larger slice of cake at birthdays to the way he was excused from family responsibilities while I handled them all. I forced a smile, but my stomach churned. I could hear the whispers, could feel the cameras trained on my face. This was not a dinner, it was a stage. And I was being cast as the reluctant antagonist to Sabrina's shining heroine. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed one of the live stream operators glancing at their phone, and then quickly turning their camera toward Sabrina. A hum of notifications rolled through the room from guests checking their own screens. I leaned toward the nearest phone and caught a glimpse of the comments section scrolling at dizzying speed. "Someone check the trust account," one viewer had typed. "Bet it's already empty," another wrote. The stream of speculation blurred together, but one line made my pulse stop for a beat. "She's going to take it all and run." My gaze shifted back to Sabrina, who was still speaking about her foundation with an air of saintly benevolence. Her hands moved gracefully, her eyes sparkling in the lights. But behind that performance, I saw it now, just a hint of the predator in the way she watched the room, calculating every reaction, every cheer, every approving nod from my mother. I didn't say anything then. I just sat there, sipping my champagne, feeling the burn of the bubbles in my throat. Somewhere deep in my gut, the truth had already settled in. Tonight wasn't about welcoming Sabrina to the family. Tonight was the first move in a game I hadn't realized we were playing. And if the comments on that live stream were even halfway right, I was already losing. It didn't take long for Sabrina's charitable foundation to become the centerpiece of her online empire. Every day, her Instagram stories overflowed with glossy images of ribbon cuttings, smiling children in places I couldn't place on a map, and tearful thank yous that felt oddly rehearsed. Her captions were full of hashtags: give back, changing lives, hearts not hands, and in every photo there was always some subtle display of wealth. A designer watch peeking out from beneath her blouse, a luxury car in the blurred background, or a champagne flute in hand during what was supposed to be a volunteer event. At first, I tried to dismiss it as harmless self-promotion, but then Ethan called me one afternoon. His voice clipped. "Claire, we're tightening access to the Trust's files. Too many eyes on sensitive information. I'll let you know if anything important comes up." He said it like he was doing me a favour. "Sensitive information?" I asked, my pulse rising. "Ethan, it's our father's trust. It's supposed to be transparent." He sighed like I was exhausting him. "We can't have you second-guessing every move. You'll get the quarterly reports. That's enough." And just like that, the line went dead. The next day, I woke to find a direct message in my private inbox. No profile picture, no name, just a single line. "If you want the truth, check our hearts, not hands." My fingers hovered over my phone for a long moment before tapping the hashtag. The feed exploded with polished posts from Sabrina's account. But in the middle of them, one image stopped me cold. Sabrina standing in front of a gleaming white villa, keys in hand, the caption reading, "New villa, new chapter." There was no mention of charity, no mention of her foundation, just a location tag in a wealthy coastal town notorious for vacation homes. I scrolled back, piecing together the timeline. The photo had gone up the same day the trust had transferred a large donation to Sabrina's foundation. When I brought my suspicions to the next family meeting, I didn't get the reaction I'd hoped for. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line as Ethan leaned back in his chair, his arms folded. "Claire," he said, his tone dripping with patience, "you've been against this from the start. Maybe you're just afraid she's doing more with this money than you ever could." My mother didn't say a word in my defense. Instead, she reached for Sabrina's hand and squeezed it. "Sabrina has a vision, dear. You should try to be supportive." It wasn't just dismissal, it was exile. I could feel the invisible door closing, the same one that had closed on me 100 times before whenever Ethan needed to be protected from consequences. Meanwhile, somewhere in the house, Lily was passing the upstairs landing when she heard voices coming from her father's office. She paused, hidden behind the banister, as Sabrina's voice hissed through the crack in the door. "No one will know the signature's fake. Your mother's barely looked at a bank statement in her life." Lily's breath caught. She pulled her phone from her pocket, her hands shaking, and started to record. The voice on the other end of the call was male but unfamiliar, low and deliberate. "It has to look real, Sabrina. If it doesn't, this whole thing falls apart." Before she could listen any longer, footsteps echoed in the hall. She stuffed her phone into her sweatshirt and crept back to her room, her heart pounding. That night, Lily typed out a message to me. "We need to talk. I heard something." But before I could see it, Ethan stepped into her room. He picked up her phone casually, as if checking the time, but his thumb swiped the screen with purpose. A moment later, her message was gone. Screen time's over," he said, placing the phone on her desk, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Good night, kiddo." Lily sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the blank message screen. She knew then that she couldn't risk sending me anything through her phone. She needed another way. The next morning, she pulled her old stuffed rabbit from the back of her closet, a faded, floppy thing she'd had since she was 3. She unzipped the seam in its side, slipped in a small USB drive, and stitched it shut with thread she found in her mother's sewing kit. Inside that drive were the recordings, screenshots, and a growing collection of evidence she didn't dare keep anywhere else. She tucked the rabbit back onto her shelf, its head leaning casually against the wall. To anyone else, it was just a childhood relic. To her, it was the safest place in the house. What Lily didn't know was that hiding the truth was about to get much harder, because Sabrina had started asking questions about her too. It was just after midnight when I opened the latest quarterly report from the trust. The numbers stared back at me in black and white, stark and final. The balance that had once been $8 million now hovered just above zero. The last transaction, dated 2 weeks earlier, was labelled simply as a donation transfer. No recipient listed, no project details, nothing but that vague, mocking phrase. I stared at it for so long, my eyes began to blur. In the corner of the room, the grandfather clock ticked steadily, each swing of its pendulum hammering home the fact that the thing my father had built, the safeguard for generations, was gone. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a TikTok notification. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Sabrina was on screen, glowing in the afternoon light, her voice dripping with joy. "Welcome to the first ever Hearts Not Hands Centre," she announced, sweeping the camera to reveal the villa. The same villa from her Instagram. The marble floors gleamed, the infinity pool shimmered, the ocean spread endlessly behind her. "This will be a hub for our charitable work," she continued, "a place where dreams are made real." In the comments, viewers were not buying it. "That's a vacation rental. I've stayed there. It's not a centre." She's lying. The villa was no centre. It was a getaway. A trophy purchased with stolen legacy. My phone rang. Ethan. Against my instincts, I answered. "Claire," he said, his tone cold and flat. "I think it's time we stop pretending we're on the same side." "Ethan, the trust isn't yours to worry about anymore," he interrupted. "I've decided you're not part of this family's future. As far as I'm concerned, you're not my sister." The line went dead before I could answer. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, listening to the empty hum. The weight of his words settled over me like wet cement. That night, an email appeared in my inbox. No sender name, no subject, just a single attachment, her signature.pdf. My hands trembled as I double-clicked. It was a scan of a legal document bearing my grandmother's signature, except something about it felt wrong. I didn't have time to study it before a fresh wave of exhaustion crashed over me. Sleep was not kind. I dreamed of my father, his face half in shadow, his voice echoing, "You were supposed to protect it." I woke in a sweat, heart pounding, shame curling tight in my chest. The next day, a private TikTok message arrived from Lily. The video began with shaky footage of Sabrina in the villa's sunlit study. She held a contract in her manicured hands, the camera angled just enough for the signature at the bottom to be visible. "And here," Sabrina said proudly, "is the agreement signed by the matriarch herself." I froze the video and zoomed in. My grandmother's name was there in looping cursive, but the letters were too uniform, too deliberate. I'd seen her handwriting my whole life. Her hand always trembled slightly, especially in the last few years. This signature was steady, perfect, forged. I was still staring at it when another message from Lily popped up. "If you want the money back, you have to help me first." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. What could a 14-year-old possibly need from me in this? Then I remembered the USB she'd hidden in the stuffed rabbit, the way Ethan had intercepted her messages before. Whatever she knew, whatever she had, it was dangerous. And if I didn't move carefully, we could both lose more than money. I stared at Lily's message for a long time before replying, "Meet me tomorrow, somewhere safe." We chose the park near the old library, a place no one in our family ever bothered to visit. She arrived in an oversized hoodie, her hair tucked under a baseball cap, glancing over her shoulder like someone twice her age. "I've been collecting things," she said without preamble, pulling a small flash drive from her pocket. Emails between Dad and Sabrina, screenshots of bank transfers, even receipts from cash withdrawals. I saved them in case it got worse. I took the drive carefully, like it might break in my hands. "Lily, this is dangerous. If they find out..." "They already suspect me," she interrupted, her voice steady. But I don't care. They've been lying for months. I just didn't know how bad until now." I crouched so we were eye level. "And listen to me. From this moment on, I'll protect you. No matter what happens, I won't let them hurt you." She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. But just as I felt relief settle in, she tilted her head and asked, "Are you sure you want to know the secret that's worse than losing the money?" The question lodged in my chest. Before I could answer, she was already walking toward the swings, leaving me with the flash drive and a gnawing sense of dread. That night, I plugged the drive into my laptop. Folders opened one after another, screenshots of bank statements showing hundreds of thousands moving from the trust into Sabrina's foundation account, only to be withdrawn in cash days later. Email chains where Sabrina coached Ethan on how to justify charitable expenses that didn't exist. Even a photo of Sabrina grinning beside a safe stuffed with stacks of bills. I knew we had enough to start legal action, but Sabrina wasn't stupid. She'd hide behind the image she'd built, twist the narrative before we could act. We needed something public, something she couldn't spin. The next day, I laid out the plan. "I'll contact a lawyer I trust, someone discreet. You create bait, something irresistible enough that she'll brag about her scam in her own words." Lily's eyes lit up with a mix of fear and excitement. "I can make a fake investor profile. Flashy photos, fake bio, and lots of talk about philanthropy. She'll take the meeting." We worked side by side in my kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence between keystrokes. Lily crafted an online persona named Adrian Royce, a wealthy tech entrepreneur looking to partner with like-minded change makers. Within hours, Sabrina followed the account back. 3 days later, the bait worked. Sabrina sent Adrian a direct message, dripping with enthusiasm and hints about her unique investment structure. By the next morning, she'd sent him an invitation to the villa for a private tour. While Lily maintained the Adrian facade, I met with the lawyer. He was a calm, deliberate man named Harris, who listened without interruption as I laid out the evidence. "If what you're showing me is legitimate," he said, "this is not just mismanagement, it's fraud, but you'll need more to tie it to all parties involved." That more came from Lily. Late one night, she texted me a single line, "Check her cloud." She'd managed to guess Sabrina's password, a combination of her dog's name and birth year. Inside, among hundreds of vacation photos, was a folder labelled contracts. One stood out immediately, an agreement with a company registered in a tiny Caribbean island nation. I clicked through, scanning for Ethan's name. It appeared only once, buried in the appendices. The primary signatory was not Sabrina. It was my mother. For a moment, the room tilted. My mother, the woman who'd always favoured Ethan, who'd defended him against every accusation, had not just looked the other way. She'd signed her name to something that could destroy us all. I leaned back in my chair, my pulse pounding in my ears. Lily's message buzzed on my phone. "Still want the truth?" I sat across from my mother in the sunroom, the afternoon light pooling across the patterned rug between us. She looked smaller than I remembered, her hands folded tightly in her lap. I slid the contract across the table, my voice steady but cold. "Why is your name on this?" Her eyes flicked to the page, then back to me. "Ethan said it was just a formality," she murmured. "He told me it was to help with the charity's international registration. I didn't read it, Claire. I trusted him." "You didn't think to ask why Sabrina couldn't sign it herself?" My words came out sharper than intended. Her lips trembled. I thought I was helping your brother. I didn't know she was using my name to hide something illegal. I leaned back, fighting the urge to shout. You signed away more than your name, Mum. You gave them the shield they needed. 2 days later, the first article hit. A well-known investigative journalist released a story titled "The Charity That Wasn't," complete with side-by-side images of Sabrina's villa and the supposed charity centre she'd claimed it to be. Embedded in the piece was video Lily had captured from the TikTok live tour, where Sabrina flaunted the pool and marble counters without a single sign of community outreach. The internet tore her apart. Comment sections overflowed with outrage, accusations, and screenshots of her lavish shopping sprees juxtaposed with pleas for donations. That evening, my phone rang. I almost didn't answer when I saw Ethan's name, but something in me wanted to hear his voice. "Claire," he started, his words choked and uneven. I'm in trouble. You have to help me, please." "You have lawyers, Ethan," I said flatly. "Like, they can't fix this. You know, she's turning on me, saying it was all my idea. You're the only one who can..." I cut him off. Do you remember what you said to me? You're not my sister." I paused, letting the silence stretch. "I haven't forgotten." Then I hung up. The next week was a blur of headlines. Sabrina gave an interview to a gossip site, tears streaming down her cheeks as she insisted she'd been manipulated by Ethan. "He controlled the finances," she sobbed. "I just wanted to help people." Ethan countered with his own statement, painting her as the mastermind who had seduced him into a fraudulent scheme. It might have been laughable if the stakes weren't so high. When the trial began, the media swarmed the courthouse steps. I sat in the back, watching as my mother entered quietly, her face pale. For most of the proceedings, she said nothing, her gaze fixed on the floor. But when the prosecution displayed the forged signature alongside her real one, she whispered into the microphone, "I'm sorry, Claire." It wasn't loud enough for the whole courtroom to hear, but it was enough for me. The words, however late, landed like a stone dropped into a still pond, rippling through years of resentment. Sabrina crumbled on the stand under cross-examination, her social media posts used against her in painstaking detail. Ethan fared no better, his defensive outbursts painting him as desperate and cornered. By the second week, both were under formal investigation for multiple counts of fraud, conspiracy, and embezzlement. I thought it was over until Harris, my lawyer, called me into his office. On his desk was a slim folder. "While digging through Ethan's accounts, we found something," he said. He flipped the folder open to reveal bank statements from a secondary trust account. Unlike the family trust, this one was newer, smaller, but not by much. The balance hovered at nearly $2 million. "Whose name is on it?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Harris slid the paper toward me. There it was, Ethan's name, alone at the top. "He's been siphoning into this for over a year," Harris continued. "It's offshore. My guess is he thought it would be his safety net when everything else collapsed." I sat back, my mind spinning. The war wasn't over. Ethan had hidden a lifeline for himself, and if we didn't move quickly, he'd use it to rebuild everything he'd just lost. The verdict came down on a grey Tuesday morning. The courtroom was silent as the judge read the findings. Ethan permanently stripped of any rights to manage family assets. Sabrina convicted of multiple counts of fraud and sentenced to prison. Her face was pale, eyes darting between the cameras, lining the back wall, as if still searching for the perfect angle. Ethan didn't look at me once. By the end of the week, the offshore account Harris had uncovered was frozen. Every dollar was traced, documented and transferred into a newly formed trust. This time the beneficiary was Lily, with me named as her legal guardian until she came of age. When I told her, her eyes widened, and for a moment she looked like the child she still was. But then she leaned close, her voice barely above a whisper. You know, there's still one more secret about that villa. The words lodged in my mind, but before I could press her, she changed the subject, asking about dinner plans. I let it go, for now. Life shifted quickly in the months that followed. While the legal dust settled, Lily and I began building something of our own. We called it the Truth Fund, a non-profit dedicated to helping victims of financial scams fight back. We worked out of my dining room at first, laptops open, coffee mugs scattered among the paperwork. Every time I saw her focused on a spreadsheet or drafting a post for our new social media page, I felt a swell of pride that had nothing to do with the money in her trust. The project grew faster than we expected. Reporters who had covered Sabrina's downfall now wanted to tell our story, and donations began to pour in. Survivors reached out from all over the country, some just to thank us for speaking out, others asking for help in recovering what they'd lost. One autumn morning, Lily approached me with an invitation in her hand. "They want me to speak at a TEDx event," she said, eyes bright. "About everything that happened, about how we fought back." The day of the event, I sat in the front row of a packed auditorium. The stage was lit in warm gold, the big red TEDx letters standing tall behind the podium. Lily stepped into the light, no hoodie this time, her hair pulled back neatly, her voice steady as she began. "When I was 14, my father's new wife emptied our family trust. I could have stayed quiet, I could have let it happen, but instead I decided to fight." She spoke about the night she hid the USB in the stuffed rabbit. The moment she decided to trust me. The lessons we both learned about courage and betrayal. She didn't spare herself in the story. She admitted her fear, her hesitation, the times she almost gave up. But she ended with something I hadn't expected. "The most important thing I learned wasn't how to catch a thief. It was that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up for you when the lights go out." The applause was thunderous. I felt my throat tighten, but before I could wipe my eyes, the camera panned across the crowd for the live stream feed. That's when I saw him. In the third row from the back, half shadowed, a man in a dark suit sat with his hands folded. His smile was small, knowing, not warm. His eyes met mine for the briefest moment before the camera cut back to Lily. A chill ran through me. I couldn't place him, but something about his posture, his stillness, set every instinct on edge. The room erupted in cheers as Lily finished, but my focus was locked on that empty seat in the third row, empty because the man was gone. I clapped along with the rest, the sound hollow in my ears, and a single thought burned in my mind. Maybe the past wasn't finished with us after all.